Hey everybody, how you doing? I'm just getting off work today. It's a crisp, cold day. It's feeling real chilly. We're gonna get snowed on, I think. But, gotta bundle up. Sorry about the camera shaking. Gotta get those gloves on. Still don't have the finger things. I need to get one of them. Doop, doop. Make me super pro. What's been banging around in my head today? Had a good day today. Really good day today. I've been working out a lot recently. Finally, I feel like I've gotten to that point again where the workout is invigorating, it's energizing, as opposed to kind of like a boulder you're carrying around, right? Yeah, and today was like the first day where that's the truth. So that's super positive. Well, really looking for the positives in the world today. What's been banging around in my head? Now I don't know how to pronounce the name of the First Nations tribe that is under assault. The Wee-Setenang, something like that. I'm so horrible. I've only read it. I've never said it out loud, so please forgive me. But this First Nations tribe, it's ongoing what the First Nations people have always undergone here in Canada, which is total bullshit. The First Nations people are standing up against the expansion of pipeline through their territory, and they're saying, please, no, we don't want you to put a pipeline through our territory. And the response from the RCMP, as has always been the response from the RCMP, is to throw bullshit at them, to ignore treaty rights, to break blockades, to break protests up, with all the classic stuff, right, which is violence. So, which is how the RCMP communicates, with violence. And I mean, there's a long-standing tradition of this. I mean, you only need to look at the '60s Scoop to see how how ingrained this is in the history of the RCMP. I know quite a lot more about the '60s Scoop than I do know about what's going on with the current pipeline expansion, to be honest, but it doesn't take a genius to figure it out. The real shame about this, I mean, it's these First Nations people are standing, like, we can't be expanding these pipelines. We simply cannot be expanding them. And it drives me up the wall when people stand up and say, well, we have to expand these pipelines for the quote-unquote economy, right? Oh, it's our economy. It's how our economy works. It's you don't want to collapse the economy, do you? Yes, I do. I do want to collapse that economy. I want that economy to collapse as fast as possible, please. Faster the better, right? And I'm over it. Like I super am over it. Right? People, we have to be moving in a more logical way. We have to present, and yes, the transition from a fossil fuel economy into a non-fossil fuel economy is going to be disruptive. Everybody knows that. Nobody's pretending otherwise. But if you are sitting there pretending like we don't have to do that, and if you're sitting there pretending like that isn't going to happen, then it's going to be far more disruptive. Whereas if you stand there and you say, okay, we need to make this transition, we need to make it quickly, we have to be serious about this, we have to be grown-up adults and make adult decisions the way adults do, instead of crying babies, pretending like there isn't a problem, or pretending like they can stamp their feet and get what they want, the way crying babies do. That's conservatives and liberals. Then they're going to cry and pout and stamp their feet all the way to the graveyard. And The disruptions that we experience because of their whining and crying and moaning are going to be way, way, way worse than if we follow even an NDP climate plan, right? I support the Green Party myself because I think the Green Party has the most rational position on this. We have to face these things, and we have to face the problems that this disruption is going to cause head on. We need to take it seriously and actually move the society in a direction. And it's the First Nations people of our society who are the ones that are putting their skin in the game, really. They're the ones that are actually facing the full brunt, the violent brunt that our society has always used to assert its dominance over others. And this violence is freely used against the First Nations people because simple racism. Like, I don't need to go much deeper than that. They're not us. And so we can do what we want to them as far as we're concerned. They're just standing in the way. We can wipe them aside. And that's considered fine because they're not us. And meanwhile, these people, the First Nations people, are the ones who are attempting to prevent the absolute insane actions of not only previous governments, but of the current government. The purchasing of this pipeline reveals Justin Trudeau as like a hollow, empty paper bag. His argument couldn't be more childish, more stupid, more obviously like a line that is fed from the oil industry. It's just completely what it is, right? Like, it's as if a junkie has said to you, okay, I'm gonna get off heroin, I absolutely promise. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna keep doing heroin, and that'll be fine. And you know what? Every Monday when I do heroin, I'll do one quarter less heroin on Mondays, and yeah, that'll do it. It's this extremely absurd, ridiculous position, because their argument, like, let's not be analogous here. This is what they're saying, is that we don't need to reach into the coffers of the oil industry, who has plundered the society completely. They have taken a public resource that should have been nationalized, that was nationalized. They took a public resource that the public should have ownership over as a collective. They declared that a handful of individuals have ownership over it, and allowed those individuals to benefit from the work and labor and effort of all collected people, and take that money, and instead of reinvesting it in the society, which was the lie that they told all of us, they just threw it into holes where they sit. And our current government, who is just a shill for these corporations, he's an empty person. He has no moral position. Instead of actually standing up and taxing these people, saying, okay, you're not investing the money the way you said you would. You said you would, and you are not. And instead of taking that money away from them because they're not using it, they're just pointlessly sitting on it, using it to chalk up whatever win they think they're getting out of it to attain their own kind of prestige or power or authority. So instead of instead of doing that, which in my view is the rational thing to do, someone lies to you like that and steals the resources from you, you should turn around and say, okay, you can't be trusted. You're obviously a thief. You're obviously not trying to help anyone but yourself. So we're going to take these resources away from you and we're going to use them to help people. Which is the only reason a government should be tolerated. Why else would you tolerate a government if it's not there to help you? And so, instead of that, the Liberals, their line, which has obviously been fed to them from the oil industry directly, is we're going to allow the oil industry to continue moving unimpeded, and in fact, we're going to buy a pipeline for them with your money, taxpayers. We're going to buy that pipeline with your money, and then we're going to put like a 0.1% tax or some sort of insignificant number on further production. And that money will steadily use slowly over time to maybe perhaps actually start to maybe deal with possibly the idea that maybe climate change could possibly be a problem. It's absolutely absurd. It's absolutely stupid. I'm to a point now where, like, I refuse to vote Conservative. I refuse to vote Liberal. I consider them to be traitors to Canada. The Conservatives especially. I mean, they're outright denying that there's a problem. Can you imagine if there was like an armed force that rolled up on the shore of Canada and one of the major parties in our parliamentary system just declared that there's no problem here? You would call them traitors. And there would just be no debate about that. But because it's the environment being caused by their actions, they get a free pass, I guess. No, I think that it's past time that we start calling these Conservatives for what they are, which are traitors. They're traitors to Canadians. They're traitors to their own families. They're traitors to everybody. Their treasonous behavior should not be tolerated, and we should expunge them. I hope that this next election cycle they get absolutely decimated. But the only way that's actually going to happen is if anybody actually talks to the Albertans, because it's the Albertans that need to be convinced. And the only reason the Albertans are still going along with these Conservatives, who obviously don't care about them, who obviously are working to betray them as fast as possible. Just look at Jason Kenney, for God's sakes. He's working to betray the Albertan people as fast as he possibly can, to steal as much money as he can from them, to jam it into his own coffers. And it's so obvious. Same thing with Doug Ford, same thing with Brian Pallister. They're all just shysters and con men and thieves. They don't care about the people they represent. And it's obvious. I think you absolutely have to be a complete dunce to think otherwise at this point. The outright abject theft of the Conservative Party against the people of Canada, it's just going to be remembered as this insane period of pillaging and piracy. And the First Nations people are the people who have been standing against it. The First Nations people are the people who have been working in the field, on the ground, and facing the absolute worst that Canada can throw against it, outside of straight armed attack. But the thing is that the First Nations people have a history of winning these conflicts. They generally get what they want. Typically what will happen is we'll pick one of them and we'll martyr that individual, and then we'll declare it a victory. It's exactly what we did with Louis Riel. If you're not familiar with Louis Riel, because you celebrate Family Day instead of Louis Riel Day, Louis Riel is a Manitoban hero. Louis Riel stood against John A. Macdonald as he swept the railway across Canada and attempted to simply take over the prairie provinces without representation, without any kind of say by the people who actually lived on that land. They just attempted to move in and take it over the way that the corporate state has currently taken over our country, without any kind of violent overthrow. Now, of course, Louis Riel fought back with arms, shot back, and for this, he became a wanted man. But when they set up the electoral system, which is exactly what he was fighting for, when Manitoba was able to elect its own representative, they elected Louis Riel. Louis Riel became the man who, he was a Métis. He became the man that Manitoba wanted to send to Ottawa, while Ottawa had wanted him and wanted to murder him. Louis Riel won several elections under these conditions, until finally things were so horrible for him because he was forced to live on the run. He was forced into all kinds of horrible situations, probably driven mad by all of this insanity that was surrounding him, until finally he goes to Ottawa, where they hang him because he had the audacity to fight back. And that's the real thing. When I read media these days, when I read what the propaganda is coming out of the United States and out of Canada these days, I literally am saying almost every day, how dare we fight back? How dare they fight back? When America went into Iraq, and it would continuously point at the Islamic people, at the things that they were doing to the American troops, how dare they fight back? How dare they fight back against your aggression? And this is exactly how I feel about the climate change issue. How dare we fight back? How dare we want to have breathable air? How dare we put that ahead of some yuppie wanting to drive 2 hours a day in a car? Oh no. That yuppie might actually have to live and work in the society that he is in, as opposed to driving 2 hours to get to a job that he hates. Oh no. This entire system, propped up by oil, this capitalist system, it has no legitimacy left. It's just a parasite, siphoning away as much as it can before it abandons us. And that's the path that we're heading on. And right now, the people who are on the front line are, of course, the people who are demonized and have always been demonized through our entire nation's history. Okay. Well, I think I'm home. I think I've had enough. Hey, how you doing? I hope you guys are out there having a good time, loving your people, loving your friends. Hold them tight. Let them know you love them. Do something nice for them. Do something that shows you care. Valentine's Day is coming up. Use that as an excuse. Don't make it because of this. Make it because you love them. All right, guys. I hope you're having fun out there. I love y'all.